Hi, I'm Gavin Klami, Product Development Manager at Innovative Car Wash Equipment, here today to go over some of the basic integration challenges and best approaches for your new Innovative Reclaim system.
Just to go over some of the basic connection points here with the Hoffman reclaim system, we have a dirty side manifold and a clean side manifold is really the best way to think about it. So starting on the dirty side manifold at the bottom, you're going to have your connection from your grinder pump coming up from your pit. You're going to have an outlet for your recirculation line, which is going to recirculate water through your car wash system when you're not in a filtration mode. You're going to have a connection to connect to the inlet side of the filter to send the dirty water over to be filtered through the immediate filter. And then on top, you're going to have an outlet to connect to your sewer for during the flush cycle of the filter system. That will allow us to back flush the filter and remove all that debris and send it out to your oil sand separator and your sewer system itself. We then have a clean side manifold. Starting at the bottom of that, you're going to have a connection for clean municipal water to be used during the back flushing process. You're going to have a filter connection for the outlet of the filter after that water has been cleaned and filtered. And then on top, you're going to have a connection for your reclaim system actually going to feed out to your high pressure pump system.
So obviously a key portion of the reclaim system are the collection pits on your site. They can be multi-chambered from 3 to 7 chambers, depending on your actual layout, but a key part of them are the elevations between those chambers and how they drain and possibly have material removed from those pits to an oil sand separator or to sewer. A very critical thing to ensure is that you are not draining water out of those pits unintentionally. So we've seen on some sites that you might have a skimmer system or something of that nature trying to defoam the pits, something of that nature from previous system. And that might be actually draining a volume of water out of the pit during the recirculation process that you wouldn't otherwise notice during the normal wash process where you have makeup water. This can lead to an issue where you start to lower the overall pit level during recirculation so that during off hours running of the reclaim system, you may enter a situation where you're running your expensive and complicated pump dry. Generally in pit 2, if you have a 3-pit system or further up line, depending on how many chambers you may have, you're going to have an aeration system as well. We supply a micro bubbler system, which is going to be suspended within that pit off of chains. That's dependent on your exact site layout, but we want to ensure that that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 inches below the water level to allow proper aeration, but off of the bottom of that settlement tank to ensure that we're not just churning up all of the settlement that is happening. Again, the depth of that and exactly how you're going to position it will somewhat depend on the actual layout of your underground tanks, but we really want to kind of balance those two things. So in the final pit, that's where you're going to actually locate the grinder pump for the reclaim system. That's going to be essentially powering the entire system from a hydraulic or hydronic level. So what you want to ensure there is that the level of water within that pit remains stable during operation, whether it's in recirculation or filtration and washing mode. And you want to make sure that the bottom of that pit is of a design that you can easily place the reclaim pump on the bottom of the pit. It does come with a small stainless steel stand to keep it up out of the final amount of settlement that happens in that tank. But really you want to ensure that it's a design that allows that pump to live in a fully submerged state and not be sucking up a ton of sediment within that tank. Also within that, you're going to potentially have to have some sort of junction box either in the pit or near the pit. The pump does come with a 10-meter lead cord that may be long enough to run directly back to the reclaim skid in your back room, but depending on your site layout, you may need to create a junction box for that. The largest thing around that is you want to ensure that you have a properly rated, watertight, environmentally correct junction area for those connection points, both for the motor lead connections, and there are also some over temperature sensors that are wired directly to the pump as well. So wherever that junction has to happen electrically, you just really want to ensure that you're selecting with your electrician to make sure that that is properly rated, moisture controlled, and you're not going to have an issue with those connection points later down the line. When you're integrating your Innovative Reclaim system, you really have two options on what you're going to do with that filtered reclaimed water. You can send it to what we describe as a tank feed, which is essentially going to be your gravity-fed tank or pre-processed tank feeding a high-pressure stand. Or you can go to a direct feed system, which is going to feed that filtered water directly into the head of the pump. They both have their pros and cons, but the way you plumb them ultimately is specific to that choice that you're going to make. So in a tank-fed system, you're going to plumb directly into, again, a generally gravity-fed holding tank above a high-pressure stand. You may also plumb it into a different position tank that you may have a small transfer pump feeding into a gravity-fed tank, depending on how much reclaimed water you're trying to hold on site. The largest thing with that is that the connection point from our reclaim system to that tank needs to be open to atmosphere and equipped with an overflow drain adequate to the volume of the reclaim system. So if you're running it in a tank-fed system, the reclaim system, while idle, will periodically, based on how you program it in your settings, run through a filtration cycle. We're therefore going to create filtered water and send it to that tank, even if you are not calling for it in your wash process. That allows us to keep the filters properly dosed with chemical and, again, just move the water throughout the overall system. But since we're going to send that water essentially when the reclaim system is ready to send it, not necessarily when your wash process is requesting it, it's very critical that you have a properly sized overflow on that tank system so that any of the additional water that we send to that tank can be overflown into your pit system and recirculated throughout your car wash and not cause any issues in your back room. The other option is to plumb the reclaim system via what we call a direct feed system. So again, that's going to be sending the filtered reclaim water directly into the head of your high pressure pump. Traditionally, that's done with a check valve and a T, which allows municipal water backup to still feed the pump in the event the reclaim system is turned off or is down for maintenance or anything of that nature at all, so you don't starve your high pressure pump. If that is how that is plumbed, and it is selected as direct feed on the reclaim setting screen, essentially the reclaim system will skip the filtration step in the standby mode so that we will not send water to the pump when you're not requesting it. The issue there is we really have no way to flow it through some of the high pressure pumps, and so we can really only produce water when there's demand from your high pressure pump. That will eliminate that off hours filtration process, which some sites may determine causes them a little bit of struggles with odor, especially during initial startup in the morning. But it also, if a site prefers to not have to store reclaim water, or you possibly have a 2-pump stand and only a single tank that you need to also have fresh water in for your other wash process on that pump, you may choose to use direct feed reclaim water to the second pump on that stand. So the option is really there for the customer to decide what's best for their overall process. And you just need to configure the setting screen appropriately and, again, plumb it appropriately, matching your settings choice. Another point of connection to your overall site is going to be the electrical signal connection from your tunnel controller. So that, again, is needs to correspond to the choice in how you're integrating the reclaim system to your site. If you are running a tank-fed system, you're going to need a single input signal from your tunnel controller, essentially a single run control. If you are running it in direct feed, you're going to need 2 signals. So traditionally, we see customers in the tank fed system feed the belt or conveyor run signal to the reclaim. So anytime that conveyor or belt is operational, you're going to be making filtered water ready for your process, filling your tank. In the direct feed process, because it's only going to run when the high pressure pump is running, we want basically a first signal from your belt or conveyor to prime the system. It'll send the system into recirculation mode. The grinder pump will be running and the system will essentially be pressurized. And then when your high pressure pump kicks on, we rapidly change the valves and send filtered water very rapidly without any sort of priming process that could take a few seconds. That ensures you don't have any starvation period of your high pressure pump, and we have reclaimed water for you literally at the snap of the fingers. So again, matching your electrical connections with your site integration choices is a critical step of this. And both of those connections from your tunnel controller are going to be simple dry contacts. No voltage is to be supplied by your customer equipment to the reclaim system. We are providing our own voltage, sending it through your dry contact, and then back to our system to see that that signal has been sent.